This is Javier Milei, and he was just elected as Argentina's new president. The former economist is known for his high energy, strong media presence, and epic sideburns. Milei ran on the ideas of getting rid of the Argentinian central bank, dollarizing the economy, and giving an emphatic no to the BRICS invitation that the country received earlier this year. But quite frankly, he has his hands full with record high inflation, depleted currency reserves, and debts they may not ever be able to pay back. So in this video, let's dive deeper into some of his economic policy reform ideas, if they can revive Argentina's economy, and why he chose the dollar over BRICS. But before we understand what's happening today, we need to understand how the country got here, because over the last century, Argentina has been quite the roller coaster ride. In the early 1900s, Argentina experienced unprecedented wealth, driven primarily by its booming agricultural industry. This prosperity attracted significant foreign investment and migration from affluent Europeans who established things like wineries and farms. The influx of foreign expertise brought higher expectations of modern amenities, which transforms Argentina's infrastructure with utilities, roads, and electricity. This development not only stimulated the economy by creating a substantial workforce, it created a competitive edge as Argentina explored the idea of exporting goods globally. However, this economic success led to a speculative boom like the dot-com bubble in the early 2000s and cryptocurrencies today. Not too many people knew what was going on, but people were getting rich and everyone wanted to be a part of it. Despite potential instability, these investments contributed to modernizing an economy previously reliant on agriculture. Unfortunately, the Great Depression disrupted this financial inflow, affecting Argentina as severely, if not more so, than the United States. The continued instability, compounded by existing tensions over wealth inequality, paved the way for a military junta in 1930, transforming Argentina from a stable democracy to one of the most unstable economies globally. Foreign income streams dwindled, creating a need for economic policies. The government opted for a strategy shift, focusing on internal development and self-sufficiency. During World War II, Argentina accelerated its move towards self-sufficiency due to the absence of traditional trading partners in the war-torn Europe. Post-war, this economic approach culminated in developmentalism, wherein major industries were nationalized. The goal was to prioritize domestic production over global trade, aligning with the political preference for self-sufficiency. This developmentalist approach gained popularity, supported by immigrants post-World War II, fostering a sentiment against heavy involvement in global affairs. But in hindsight, the decision to isolate them from global advancements, while not unprecedented, proved to be a missed opportunity. Global trade emerged as a powerful driver of economic wealth and prosperity, showcasing the benefits of technological advancements in various industries. Despite initial economic problems from isolating itself, Argentina's attempt at self-sufficiency created challenges due to the difficulty of producing everything locally. Protective measures such as high import taxes rendered local industries uncompetitive, leading to an imbalance between production and demand. As the government prioritized paying state workers well and implementing protectionist trade policies, inflation emerged as a significant challenge. The struggle to maintain living standards made it challenging to roll back these measures, creating a cyclical pattern. Charismatic leaders periodically pledged to modernize industries and compete globally, creating economic boosts funded by accumulating debt. This cycle, combined with the flaws of developmentalism, resulted in challenges repaying loans, prompting the printing of more money and increasing inflation. And if we fast forward to today, Argentina is currently grappling with record high inflation, surpassing a rate over 100% per year for the first time since the 1990s. This inflationary crisis has led to regular citizens finding it challenging to use the local currency for transactions or savings. As a result, many have shifted to using the dollar. But in response to this dollarization trend, and to help keep inflation from getting any worse, the government imposed restrictions on the amount of Argentine pesos that can be converted to foreign currencies within a year. This, however, triggered complications for international trade, where dealing with foreign currencies is inevitable. The government, in response to this, implemented special rules for specific industries, but This line of reactionary thinking never allowed them to catch up. This is Argentina's GDP growth over the last 60 years, and you can see how volatile they've been. Currently, in the early 2020s, they've been swinging upward, but for how long? Despite this apparent boom, skepticism is high for economists as it's largely fueled by the government injecting substantial borrowed funds into local industries. The fix for Argentina involves a commitment to some level of discipline, aiming to bring debt under control and allow industries to grow without frequent and unpredictable government interventions. However, the challenge lies in the country's preferred high standards of living, primarily based on industries that have historically faced little competition. Implementing this may not be a popular decision, especially considering the uncertainty if it would work out or not. Another significant variable is the institutions that continue to lend money to Argentina. The country has a history of being a high-risk, high-reward investment, continually showing high economic growth trends. Notably, the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, acting as a global lender of the last resort, has been a major source of loans for Argentina. Controversially, Argentina has received the most lending from the IMF, often without the stingiest conditions typically associated with bailout loans. While all this is going on, Argentina was one of the 6 new countries invited to join the BRICS bloc effective January 1st, 2024. But before we get into that, I make videos about world news impacting the dollar, so if you like topics like this and want to see more of them, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Besides Argentina, the other countries invited were Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. And because of this group of countries, it was very obvious of what BRICS' strategy was for expansion. The first was creating regional balance within BRICS, as China and India are not only the largest economies in BRICS, but 2 of the largest economies in the world. It didn't make sense to invite anyone else from their region. For South Africa, the BRICS country with the smallest economy, they will now have 2 friends from Africa to help give that continent a larger voice on the global stage. And then there was Brazil, literally in the middle of nowhere all by themselves. The invitation to Argentina was technically intended for the previous president, who had a great relationship with Brazil and was very interested in joining BRICS. But then Javier Milei won the presidential election and everything changed. His stance throughout the entire process has been a firm no to accept BRICS membership. He recently did an interview with Bloomberg where he talked specifically about China and what a possible relationship with Brazil could look like. This interview was done in Spanish but dubbed in English. Take a listen.
Ask you now about the international affairs. What are going to be the angles there?
Our fundamental angles are free trade, peace, freedom, and aligning ourselves to the West, where our top references are the United States and Israel.
And what about China? It's one of the main trading partners.
It might be a business partner with the private sector. However, we do not make pacts with communists.
So what would you do? In other words, would you stop Argentina's relations with China?
I would not promote relations with communists.
And what about Brazil? It's the country's most important trade partner. You've spoken harshly about Lula in the past. Can you have a closer relationship?
No.
This is an interesting stance, as China and Brazil are Argentina's top 2 trade partners. Now, of course, all this business won't just go away because of trades happening in the private sector. But Milei has pledged that any state-owned operation will not do business with China because of, the whole communist thing. The second strategy for BRICS expansion was going after countries with vast resources, the first of which, and probably most important, being oil. Now, the additions of Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, BRICS will now have 6 of the top 10 oil producer countries in the world. As for Argentina, they are one of the largest mineral mining countries for silver and copper and produce the 15th most gold in the world. But their main attraction might be lithium, where they are the 4th largest producer and hold the 2nd most in reserves. As technologies evolve, lithium will become more and more important as it is a critical component in things like rechargeable batteries for electric vehicles, cell phones, and other tech products. Let's dive into a couple of Milei's more polarizing topics like dollarizing the Argentine economy and completely getting rid of the central bank altogether. Here's what he had to say about the central bank.
I think there's a previous discussion about dollarization. Actually, strictly speaking, is to get rid of the central bank. The dollarization is an instrumental issue at the end of the day. There are 4 argumentative axes. One has to do with a moral issue, which is that stealing is wrong. Therefore, let's say if we consider that stealing is wrong, One of the greatest thieves in the history of mankind is the central bank.
His argument is that the central bank won't be able to control themselves when it comes to printing pesos to try and facilitate inflation-induced spending. So his proposal is to completely remove the peso in place of the dollar. Many Argentinians already use the dollar to help prevent their savings from a complete currency depreciation, so it's not impossible, but there are just some serious issues with this plan. First, this decision isn't solely his. As of this recording, Milei will not hold a majority in Congress, likely making it difficult to push through such a drastic change. Second, and probably the most important, Argentina doesn't have enough dollar reserves. Milei suggested he would need around 40 billion in reserves to dollarize the country, but currently the central bank has anywhere from -4 to -10 billion in currency reserves. The reason there is a range is because the central bank of Argentina doesn't publish its net foreign reserves, only its total reserves. So experts are making their best estimates, but either way, they are very negative. And this doesn't even include the massive loan they need to pay down or restructure to the IMF, which they currently paid down a little using their Chinese yuan reserves. And third, while dollarization might be appealing, it has its own risks. If a government can't reduce its deficits, it has to default. And because they're unable to set interest rates, dollarized states, like Milei wants Argentina to become, are at the mercy of the Federal Reserve. Yeah, the central bank to the United States. Dollarized states also have the risk of bank runs if their central bank starts running low on reserves. Moving to the dollar will essentially require devaluing of the peso, which will probably mean more inflation in the short term. As Argentina looks to dollarize and get the economy back to its glory days, it's important to know that other countries around the world have used the dollar to help stabilize their own currencies or economies. And this even includes some of the BRICS founding members. To find out more, make sure you check out this playlist here.